The Native Plant Project is pleased to welcome Mylen Arias of American Forest as the featured guest speaker for this month's meeting. Arias serves as Senior Manager of Community Resilience, where she leads environmental literacy initiatives focused on restoring the Rio Grande Valley's native thornforest ecosystem. And with that, Mylen, I give you the floor. Thanks for being here.
But thank you all for coming. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to the Native Plant Project for the kind invitation. And it's so nice to see so many new and so many familiar faces here today. So I appreciate your time, and I'm very excited to today get the opportunity to not just talk to you about who American Forest is and the work that we do in the Rio Grande Valley, but also to, for the very first time, have a public screening of our new mini documentary produced by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So hopefully we're ready to watch a mini movie today, but thank you all again for coming. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about our film, our work. The film is called Thornforest, Restoring the Wildlands of South Texas. But if you don't know who we are or who I am, I'd like to start with just giving you a little bit of background. This might be familiar to some of you that have already been to different presentations with us or have visited us at our nursery, but just a quick refresher. As Josué mentioned, my name is Mylen Arias. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Resilience at American Forest, which means that I lead our community engagement and education initiatives. I went to UTRGV to study biology for my master's. I believe you guys got a chance to hear from Dr. Christofferson this past January. So he was actually my mentor, and I was doing work looking at U.S. Fish and Wildlife restoration plantings and studying those plant-plant interactions as well as the success of those restoration efforts. And after that, I transitioned into teaching, which is actually what ignited my passion to come back into the restoration world. Because when I was with my students, I started with middle schoolers. I would tell them that we have a forest in the valley, we have so many nature parks, so many areas to explore, and they had no idea what I was talking about. So for me, it was very important to find opportunities where we can involve our youth in the work that is being done in the valley for all sorts of conservation, not just of plants, but also of the beautiful and immense wildlife that we have here. With American Forest, I'm also the lead organizer of Rio Reforestation, which, if you haven't heard of before, is a planting event that we do every year with Fish and Wildlife Service, and I'll talk a little bit about that toward the end of the presentation as well. But if you don't know who we are as an organization, American Forest is the oldest nonprofit organization in the US that is dedicated to conservation, founded in 1875. And we have been critical to the creation of quite a few different agencies, such as the US Forest Service, but have been essentially championing forests throughout the entire country for years. In the Rio Grande Valley, we have been working since the 1990s, very close to when I was born, so I call that just fate. But what we do here in the valley is just look at our large landscape restoration projects, right? So our organization actually has two main departments, one of which called Tree Equity, which is essentially our urban forestry and our city plantings. So you will find us in Chicago, you will find us in Austin, all of these large cities that are doing maybe smaller plantings, but are very critical for protecting green spaces in those areas that see very, very high urbanization. But we are part of resilient forests, which again, we're looking at that landscape level and covering a lot of ground at once, right? So we do not just the restoration, but we also do education. That's where I come in, just because we do believe that it is critical and super important for us to connect with the public on the work that is being done to conserve these areas. Especially because, like I said, a lot of our youth don't even know that we have them, let alone some of us adults that have been here in the valley for years and years and have never gotten a chance to go outside and explore some of the biodiversity that we have. So this is who we are, this is what we do. Our mission, again, is to partner to restore our thorn forest because we know that there are so many pressures in the Rio Grande Valley from ranching, from agriculture, from massive urbanization. And especially now, we see that there is even more development that is coming that we were not anticipating to happen as quickly. So because we know that there is a lot of land that has been cleared for these purposes, we want to do what we can to conserve not only what we have, but to bring more of the thorn forest to the valley so that it can stay and so that it can thrive, to support our economy, to support our communities, and to support the wildlife that we have here. Now, kept this slide here that I typically keep for introductions just because one of the main questions that we get is about the term thorn forest. So I know there's obviously a lot of feelings about what that term might mean and why we use it to begin with. A forest, by definition, actually has like a very broad definition, right? A lot of people define it just by how dense a canopy is or by how tall some of the trees are. But we are looking at the community of plants in the Rio Grande Valley from the ecological services that they provide, the ecosystem services that they provide. So our thorn forest is just our term to encompass all of our thorn scrub, but also ramaderos or sable palm groves, all of these other plant communities that are here, because this area is home to over 1,200 plant species and is also welcoming over 500 different bird species, as well as different over 300 butterfly species. And we have a lot of endangered and threatened wildlife that make the valley their home. So for us, this mix of vegetation types encompasses a forest, right? Because it's providing so many different services to all the wildlife and the people that live here. So we are familiar with our native plants, and if you're not, I would encourage you to connect with the Native Plant Project. But we know that this term is just a blanket term that we use to describe our thorn scrub, right? Which is, for many of us, including myself, the preferred term. So in the Rio Grande Valley. We're actually working currently with our GIS teams to get some more updated data, but we know based on data that we have seen in the past that these areas that are in green are the remainder of the thorn forest that we have, which once used to cover this entire Rio Grande Valley, but it's now decimated to about 10% of its size. And this is where we came in to partner with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to try to find a way to create connectivity between these areas, which you will see that our film is going to talk about a little bit more. But our main goal in the valley is to create what we call a wildlife corridor and to find these potential restoration sites. Now, one thing that we are anticipating is that we want to work with not only our public lands, but also our private landowners to actually create corridors that wildlife can travel to from one end of the valley to the other, right? So if you didn't know, over 93% of Texas, just in general, is privately owned. So one of the things that we are able to do that the private or the federal government might not always be able to do is work with those private landowners specifically, right? So we approach people that own acres and acres of land in the Rio Grande Valley, and we are working with them to go into their properties and collect native seed, or even to go and do plantings in those properties, right? All with the goal to, again, create connectivity from one end to the next. So looking at all of this, there's obviously a lot of reasons why we do this, but the main ones is what we talked about before. There are so many threats to the ecosystem here. There's so many invasive grasses that just seem to have no end, despite all the many different treatments and methods that we try to do to contain them in the valley. There is extreme drought, but also just extreme changes in temperature that we are feeling even for now. It's the spring and it's just getting hotter and hotter, and then it gets windier out of nowhere. So we are tracking, there are so many climate stressors. There's a lack of native seed sources precisely because, as we saw, there is a limited amount of untouched or undisturbed thorn forest that is left. But we are also continuing to see a lot of habitat loss and fragmentation in this region, which again is just not the easiest thing to combat through one project. So for us, we're all about partnership, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but it's all with the purposes of trying to do restoration in a way that is sustainable in this area. So I was hoping this presentation was going to have some animation, so I do apologize that these are not working at this time, so just walk with me. But the way that we approach restoration here is through partnership, right? We are proud to have been leading the charge in the creation of the Thornforest Conservation Partnership, which was established in 2018 and has produced a lot of data and a lot of research in the recent years all about how to best do restoration in this region and what restoration could even mean for the valley, because we know that we might not ever get back to or undisturbed thorn forests because of just those changing climates that we have. But we are doing the research with our partners to go ahead and do that landscape coverage with native trees. We partner with them, we produce the research, and we're also doing a lot of wild seed collection. So looking at those areas so that we still have of thorn forest and the private lands that we have access to, we have teams that are going out there on a daily basis to just go and collect that native seed that is so precious and bring it back to our nursery. So if you didn't know, we manage Mylen Nursery, which is owned by the Fish and Wildlife Service, but now fully operated by us. And we're located in Alamo, all the way down Stewart Road, if you want to go volunteer with us. And when we bring that to the nursery, our goal is to not only grow the seed that we collect, but also continue feeding our seed bank, because we know that some of these species that are out there are not producing seed at the same rate as they have done in the past. And year by year, the phenology of those seeds is changing, so the time of the year in which they're producing fruit or viable seed is changing. So we are proud to manage the largest seed bank of thorn scrub species with, I want to say it's over 55 different species that we host there. But on a yearly basis, we are growing now about 120,000 seedlings every single year. And that's just in-house. We also partner with private growers in the area, many of whom you might be familiar with, like Mr. Mike Heap, who are producing a lot of these natives that are also going out to the landscape restoration projects that we have with Fish and Wildlife Service. So our goal in growing all of these trees is to, again, cover as much ground as possible. Hence why we do row planting, which I know from an ecologist perspective is not always the most advisable. We are proud to say that we're looking, well, actually, we just closed on the interviews with an ecologist for the region that is actually gonna suggest some other planting methods with us that we're gonna be trying very soon. But for now, we do row planting that covers about 200 acres in new seedlings every single year. So we're working with Fish and Wildlife Service to do this, and obviously we're going back to those plantings that we do to also see how effective they are. Because it's not just about putting the trees in the ground, it's making sure that those trees are staying there, which is one of the main difficulties that we find in the Rio Grande Valley, especially for us that we do a lot of random plantings. When I was in school, I was looking a lot at plant-plant interactions, and we know now that there are so many of our native species that prefer to be growing alongside different species that might be acting as nurses or just friends for them. But those methods are things that we are looking on how to actually adapt on our large-scale plantings. So know that we're working on the monitoring portion to inform our planting methods. But for now, this is our approach, maximizing the capacity that we have to collect and to grow that native seed. Now, our community resilience program, and I apologize if things are a little bit moving here, is the part that I manage, which is all about involving the community, right? Mylen Nursery, like I said, which is owned by Fish and Wildlife Service, has been operating here for decades, and for the past 30 years has been closed to the public. So we have the opportunity to actually teach people in the valley what restoration looks like from the very beginning, from the seed collection to the seed processing to growing those plants in the nursery with us. And that's kind of the tenet that has taken us into now opening the doors to that nursery and hosting events, doing seed collection with people, doing planting days, but also doing a ton of workshops just to teach people how to actually grow some of these seedlings at home or at their schools, which I'll talk about in just a second. All of this tailored to different groups. So there are groups that are familiar with some of the restoration work that has been happening in the valley, but they might have trouble with growing certain species or finding even certain species in the landscape. So we provide more detailed guidance for them, but also just introductory sessions to explain what are the native species that are in the valley and what can we do to protect them where they are, right? So all of this is to build local stewardship. We have found that one of the things that has been missing for a long time in the Valley is some sort of survey, some sort of community center where we can actually get feedback from the layman community in the Valley that might not have any experience in any restoration, and like I said, has not always had the opportunity to go outside and interact with our thornforest. So we're also working on trying to get some of those feelings that the community already has. We'll see this in the documentary, but a lot of the people in the Rio Grande Valley have associated our thorn scrub with something that has to be cleared in the past. And because it needs to be cleared, when we go and say we need to restore it, we're met with some resistance. So that's the part that is being a little bit more challenging for us. So education becomes the greatest tool that we have to go ahead and talk to those folks and explain to them what our connection to the land is in the Rio Grande Valley and why it is important, right, to be doing restoration in this area. So that's our community resilience work. We welcome anyone that wants to learn and wants to invite us anywhere also to take some of the resources that we have so that we can start spreading the message about what restoration can be like in the Rio Grande Valley. One of the things that we do is we have now kind of taking a leading role in organizing Rio Reforestation. So if you're not familiar, Rio Reforestation is an event that has been happening for now 31 years in the Valley. And it is the largest single-day planting event in the entire country. So this past year, we welcome very, very close to 1,800 volunteers who helped us plant 10,000 seedlings. And this is people from all over the region. We had, I want to say, about 27 school buses that just came with hordes of students to plant their very first trees for some of them, along with their teachers, their families, and even people that have been to almost every single Rio Reforestation in the past. So we get a lot of support from the community in this. And like I said, they helped us plant about 10,000 seedlings. Which was just really cool to see. Rio Reforestation in the past has taken different shapes. It has been throughout the entire valley, but I think at most the 2023 event had 800 volunteers, and then 2024, through more partnerships, we were able to increase that to 1,600 and now to close to 1,800. So it's definitely an opportunity that is growing and it's coming back in October. So just gentle reminder for people that we're gonna be advertising a little bit more of this if you wanna come and plant with us. But it is an event that's coming with partnerships. So we partner with Fish and Wildlife, with Defenders of Wildlife, with the Friends of the Wildlife Corridor. In this case, it was with the city of FAR, which is the latest location that we had the event at, and obviously American Forest as well leading that charge. So this is a wonderful event that has taught us a lot. It's all about connection. It's all about education. For those of us that have been in the event, sometimes it feels very overwhelming. There's people all over the place just carrying shovels and carrying trees to put them in the ground. But the feedback that we get at the end from people just saying, oh my God, I got to plant a tree. I didn't know things like this were happening in the valley. It's super valuable. It's something that we really take dearly. And that is informing some of the other projects that we want to do in this region. One of the things that we have noticed from this event in the past is that we'll invite people to do the one-day planting with us, and then we all forget about Rio Reforestation up until the next October. So those are the kinds of things that we are now trying to assess and to change, to bring not just the spirit of Rio Reforestation as an event to light a little bit more, but also to what this could look like if this was a constant experience that we had in the region, right? There is obviously a need to grow more and more native plants so that they can be not only in remote areas, in just 10 acres of land that we do in one day, but also inside our communities, inside our cities, and in places that people can actually reach easier and are just more accessible. So we've learned a lot. We've learned that we have to grow with our community. We've learned that the people that we partner with are there to help us spread that message. And we have gotten some lessons from them that are really valuable. The first one is that we can't restore what people do not know exists, but also do not know or do not understand, right? So as I mentioned, Rio Reforestation, for example, is a one-day planting event. But we want people to keep talking about the plants that are here, the wildlife that is here, and the reason why it is so important to restore it for years to come and constantly, right? So environmental literacy is the foundation of our community resilience work. There is no future for restoration with American forests without the community support, because we are a team of 6. So we definitely do need people that are working here with us and that are taking this knowledge to their families and to their friends. So we work with educators. I, again, as a former teacher, that's my favorite thing to do, go to the schools, talk to those students, talk to those teachers, so that the knowledge that they're already getting in school can be tailored to the plants that we have here. One of my favorite things that we've done is actually created lesson plans for a biology class in an Idea Public Schools high school campus, where they were already learning what photosynthesis was, but now we gave them examples of what it looks like with some of our native plants. So we're doing things like this, and also working with other organizations, such as Arise Adelante, I think you might be able to see here, that are servicing some of the youth that is very underserved and just not, they don't have a lot of access to going to different areas. So we're sponsoring field trips for them to go visit some of the refuges, to go to the nursery with us and to learn the work that we're doing, and letting them also talk about what is it that they want to see. These photos right here are from an activity that we led in partnership with UT Austin, actually, that came down to the valley to do some research in the city of Pharr. And working with Arise Adelante, where students were creating posters of what their ideal valley looks like. And we gave them like a bunch of photos of just different magazines, our own magazine that you see here. And a lot of them were creating just these wonderful photos of just areas that were super green and lots of wildlife, lots of birds. And then we were able to go and be like, that's back door, that's over there, let's just go take you, right? And we have it here already. So we took them to their communities. They were able to walk around, and they were noticing like, oh, I'm in this city park and it's all concrete. There's no shade. All the trees that are here all look the same, all happening to be oak trees, my least favorite. And when they came back, they were telling us like, okay, what can we do? Can you guys work with us? Can we plant some trees together? So those are the kinds of projects that we are pursuing, right? Actually letting our youth and just our community in general give us some of the feedback of what they're observing on a day-to-day basis and what we can do to make it better, right? Whether that is planting trees in those areas or just learning more about what's in the valley. So that's our first lesson. We need people to understand what restoration looks like in the valley, what is it that we have here, so that they also feel that sense of stewardship and ownership over restoration. The other lesson is that we have to center our community in doing this. So again, kind of related, but restoration has to affect the people that live here. Related to what I said before, we talk about reforestation the one day, we forget about it until October comes back again, and then we're wanting to plant trees. But restoration needs to be something that we're doing on a constant basis and accessible for the people of the valley. You might hear it in my voice, but my first language is Spanish. So when I came to the valley and I was learning about Thornforest, I was having to translate things because I did not have the knowledge that I have now, right? So we are working with our communities to make sure that the information that we put out is accessible to everyone. And we're doing our best to make that happen. We're also working with our communities to actually let them express their love for this area. So we have partnered with different landowners. Ms. Yana Owens, for example, she's in Port Mansfield, and she was like, actually, I'm an artist. Let me create some artwork for you, and then you can put it out there, show people what some of these areas look like. And then she let us go into their property and collect seed from her property. So we're working with our community to just get some of the resources that we need and letting them also express their love for the area that we have. And we're doing more community plantings that are not just what you would see at Rio Reforestation. So we have a great partnership with Precinct 4, where we have created our very first community forest, which is a site that we planted with a lot of different trees. I think we have a representation of about 30 species in that little area, and we have planted 1,300 plants in 1 acre, and we are creating a little, what do you call it? Caminito. a trail, a trail around that area, a little butterfly garden. We invited the Boys and Girls Club to go plant with us. So we're doing these little steps to, again, make the restoration come to people in their communities versus asking the community to just go outside with us to these remote areas. So working with them has been wonderful. We're expecting to do more this year. And we have learned that resilience is really the key and is really what we want to grow, not just the trees. So this is related to something I was saying before, but we know that there is a critical need to grow more trees in the Rio Grande Valley, but that not everyone has the knowledge and the skill to do so. And it is a skill. It's something that you have to live and that you have to learn. Anyone that has grown anything in the valley from seed knows that you kind of have to try so many different methods just to get different species to sprout faster, quicker, better. And we want to impart as much knowledge of what we have as we can. So one of the initiatives that we're working on right now is what we call a restoration pipeline. And we're actually partnering with schools. This is from the PSGA district. This is PSGA Buell, where we're actually building nursery benches in those campuses for those students to start growing plants in their campuses. So a lot of us have seen that there's a lot of farm-to-table opportunities, for example, where students are growing food in their campuses. So they might already have greenhouses, or they'll have planters, so things like that, that they're not always using. And even if they are using them, they're just producing food, but they have the opportunity to also grow their own trees. There are so many wonderful projects currently happening in the valley that are encouraging the planting of schoolyard forests. So shout out to the Forest Service and to Region 1 for doing a lot of that work here. But with us, what we're trying to do is not just provide them with the trees already so that they can plant them in their campuses, but help them learn how to grow them, because that's a skill that can then turn into a job. So a lot of the students here in the Rio Grande Valley, they think that if they go into school to do biology, they're gonna have to go to medical school or they're not gonna have a job. That might be partially true in the current landscape, but there are so many opportunities in the plant world to make a name for yourself and to grow these native plants that are just becoming more and more necessary and that they are in high demand. So we're very proud to see some of these students actually grow these trees in their campuses. This campus, hopefully everything is going to go well, but by November, we should see that they have grown 1,000 trees. We gave them 3 different species to play with, and we're going there to visit. So crossing our fingers that that's going to work, because if it does, then we're going to be able to continue growing this program, not only with PSGA School District, but with others in the region. So. And if you didn't know, PSGA is because we are very close to them. So we are located very close to Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, so it's an easy drive. But working to expand that, right? And the last lesson that I want to share is just what I've kind of shared before, but collaboration is what's going to sustain our growth. So if you didn't know who the Thornforest Conservation Partnership was, these are some of the standing members that we have. So we're very proud to work with the Nature Conservancy, with UTRGV, with Fish and Wildlife, with Cesar Claiborne Institute, with the South Texas Ecotourism Center, and so many other locations, both here in the Valley, but also even our corporate sponsors that are helping and sustaining the growth of the restoration program that we're leading in the Valley. So our job and our goal, right, is to continue sustaining the collaborations that we have with these agencies so that not only can we all be successful in our own goals that we have, like for example, for us, we want to restore 200 acres every single year, but also so that we can come together and find ways to feed each other knowledge, right? So for example, with UTRGV and with Texas A&M, they are having students do research that is then going to inform some of the decisions that we make on the species that we grow and where we grow them, where we plant them. And similarly with some of these other agencies, there are so many other issues that we want to tackle. So currently, we're also looking into the water crisis that we are currently experiencing and working specifically with the Department of Agriculture as well as with the Department of Transportation on looking at the irrigation districts, looking at what can we do in those areas, whether it is planting more or just looking at the existing ecology and doing more research there, right? But our film is going to go a little bit more on this, but this is our Thornforest Conservation Partnership. All these agencies are critical in the success of the work we do, so we're very grateful for their support. But yeah, this is the part where it's a shameless plug. We do take volunteers anytime at Marinoff Nursery. So if you're very interested in joining us, you're welcome to reach out to me, but also to our volunteer coordinator, Jacqueline Trevino. And I have my card available if you also would like to connect with me. And we want you to continue growing native plants and to continue spreading more information so that other folks, not just the ones that are in this room, that a lot of us have already drank the Kool-Aid, so a lot of us already know that restoration needs to happen, can continue disseminating this message to the people that don't always have the access to be in the areas that we are. So we are, again, looking forward to growing our community more and sustaining the program that we have. And part of that has been with the development of educational tools, such as the mini documentary that we're about to watch. So we're very proud to have partnered with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology to highlight the Thornforest and the conservation plan, and to use it as an opportunity for advocacy. So I think I'm gonna go into playing that now, and after we play the video, we're gonna get an opportunity for any questions. So thank you all for your attention. Thank you all. And I'm very grateful that you guys are the first group to see it as community. We are going to be, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but if you want to hear from not just me, but also other people that were part of the documentary, we're actually going to be having another screening April 15th at UTRGV. So we're going to be posting a little bit more about that to start spreading the word over there and have a panel with some of the guest speakers on the film. But yeah. Thank you. I'll take any questions. Yeah.
So, given that we've had Rio reforestation for several years,
yes.
and you've had a chance to see the progress
yes.
from years past, how is that going?
So a lot of the patches are actually doing great. Yes. Yes, sorry about that. So the question was, given that Rio reforestation has been going on for several years now, what is the progress like, right? Have we gotten a chance to go back? And funnily enough, the last 2 years that we've done Rio reforestation, we've done it over what we call Milagro Tract, which is in the city of FAR. And it's adjacent to patches that were planted in 2016 and I want to say 2014 as well. And some of these areas are like 20 feet tall already. One of the things that we are currently doing is actually going back to look at the diversity of those plants. So that's one of the major question marks that we have, because Rio reforestation started in 1982. Last year was the 31st year because there was a 2-year break there. We all know why. Recently. So we are definitely now thinking, hey, we've done this for 30 years. We've planted and planted and planted thousands and thousands of trees. Are all of those still there, or is it only some of them that are still there, right? So are we creating a good biodiverse community of trees, or is it a monoculture that we're seeing, right? So we're currently doing those monitoring efforts. We have researchers that are going back to some of these areas, and a lot of master's students, shout out, over there, that are going back to some of these areas, Katarina, to look at the plant community that is currently in some of these older patches. Not all real reforestation, but just older patches of land. We see there is a canopy, and we see that that canopy is being used by a lot of species. So for us, the main thing has been, is it being used by the wildlife, right? Which we can answer yes. Now the question is, we need to go back and see what can we do to increase more of the success of all of the species that we plant, not just a few of them. But yeah, great question. Yes?
Sorry, really quick. You mentioned that you don't want a monoculture. So are y'all planting different species of trees like how many, or is it like even distribution, or what y'all can get your hands on?
Yeah, so the question being, are we planting different species of trees? Is there a different distribution? Each planting that we do that is in this large landscape level has at minimum 35 different species. So we do grow over, I want to say we grow exactly 53 species at the nursery. We have about 55 different species in our seed bank. And the plantings, again, have at minimum 35 different species. One thing that we do when we do like reforestation, for example, is all of those crates that you saw people have in the field to pull the seedlings from and plant, those are all mixed. So it's all randomized planting to make sure we're not doing just one row of just ebonies, right? So there is some diversity out there. Because we do random plantings, the one thing that we are not able to do just because of how impossible it is to just do it when you're in the field is to see exactly which tree we planted where. So that's the part where we need to go back. But yes, exactly. Yeah.
If there's like a specific species that doesn't survive, would y'all then reevaluate and figure out maybe the plant, like a different planting method for that species? Or?
Yeah, so if a species doesn't survive, what do we do, right? And one of the things that is interesting is that we are growing all of these 53 species right in the nursery, but we spoke in the beginning about how the valley has many different plant communities within this entire region, right? So not all of it is our traditional thorn scrub. Some of it is going to be, just different communities, grasslands, etc., right? So we do know that in the different areas that we plant, there are certain species that might or might not do the best, right? So we have already taken some of that into account, but like I said, more studies are needed to just go back and say like, okay, am I just planting granjenos in this area and I'm never gonna see them again? Am I just wasting my time there? Or what can we do to increase that survival, right? So we do try to match up with what the native plant community would look like, but it's limited. Again, we're a team of 6, guys. Of course. Take any other question? Yes.
Do you concentrate on mostly trees and shrubs, or do you include wildflowers, planting?
Yeah, great question. So the question being if we concentrate on only trees and shrubs or if we do other species like butterflies, pollinator species, sorry. We mostly concentrate on trees and shrubs for our large plantings, though we do grow those other species. So we have a lot of wildflowers that we do, and we currently are reserving a lot of those for our community plantings that we do in smaller areas. So I spoke about our community forest with the San Carlos community in Precinct 4, for example. We put a lot of those in there, mostly because those we are currently limited in the amount of seed that we can collect that remains viable for us to grow it. So currently in Marinoff Nursery, we're going through an expansion actually, where we're just building more benches, making sure we have more room to grow more and more trees. I mentioned we grow about 150,000 per year, upwards to 200,000 in-house. We're trying to up that number just because of that demand, right? So in these large landscapes, we mostly do trees and shrubs, and we keep the wildflowers for more of the smaller community plantings right now. We just need more room to grow them.
Are you incorporating any of this into the subdivisions? Like you work with the city, but yet they bring oaks from outside.
I know, right? That is one of my pet peeves. I hate an oak tree. So are we working to do the subdivisions, right? That is a part of our goals for this upcoming fiscal year for us, which begins in October 1st. It's very interesting because we have a lot of city partners that are very excited about the work that we do, and they want us to plant more trees and they want us to do all these other things. But then we also have like the HOAs, all these other folks that have different feelings about what the thorn scrub is. And like we mentioned in the film, right? It's seen as something wild and not, not pretty, essentially. But the cities are working with us to do that. So right now we have a very special relationship with the city of FAR. which is one that is taking a lot of what we are doing to heart and saying, okay, let us see what can we do in incorporating some of these. The main thing is that it goes back to education. HOAs will have these people that will go out there and do the tree care, and they don't have a clue of what is a weed versus what is a shrub versus what is a tree, right? So we've had instances where even in the community forest that we had, I remember one time we were going out there, we had flagged every tree that we had planted because we needed to go back and put those tubes on them for protection. And the day that we went to do the tubes, we saw like one corner of it just mowed. And it's like, well, we're working with their directions, but it's not getting all the way down to the people that are actually doing the maintenance. So that's part of our challenge, right? So we have a lot of partners, as I mentioned. Currently, the Forest Service and the Native Plant Society are doing a lot of certifications for landscapers, for example, to learn what are some of these native species and should we leave them, should we not, right? There's a movement to kill your lawn, please kill your lawn. So we're working on that. Little pushback there. It's a tug of war, but we're working on it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
As far as the established irrigation system, and maybe you also share an idea of possibly seeing if that can be a big help for like restoration. Do y'all have any ideas or any concrete like plans that, and if so, what are they? But are there any specific that the community can get involved with? Like, is it a matter of attending city meetings and writing comments to support or something like that?
Yeah, so in terms of creating that connectivity with the irrigation districts, how can the community get involved and what are we doing, right, to make that happen? One thing would be, yes, please, please, please engage with our local leadership. They want to hear your comments and we want them to hear your comments as well so that they can support the efforts that we're doing. There is a lot of that is behind red tape where we are like working with private landowners that just happen to own this patch of land that is adjacent to an irrigation district. So we have to go to those individual people, but also to the local government that owns certain patches of this, right? So there are a lot of different opportunities that are sometimes open to the public, sometimes not. I would say the best way to get involved is to connect with other organizations, with us, with, I mentioned the Native Plant Society, there's a Native Plant Project, obviously, that are doing this work of conservation. And with us specifically, it's connecting not just with Fish and Wildlife, for example, but connecting with Parks and Wildlife, connecting with the Forest Service, connecting with all of these, all the urban ecologists that are in some of these cities, connecting with even some of the word is escaping me. Well, yeah, it's because there's still like the urban ecologists, I guess. There's like different names for the city managers as well, for them to just give us access to some of this land. And we're also in partnership with other organizations like the Texas, I want to say it's Resource or Water Resource Institute, something like that, that is currently working to do restoration along the Rio Colorado, for example. So we're working with all of them, just having open conversations and opening the materials that we have in our nursery to be part of those restoration efforts. But yeah. We always invite the community to talk to our local governments and get your voices heard.
Thank you, Mylen.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate it.